Hey, and we're back with another episode of Triple Play. We appreciate everybody's support and their help with each of these episodes. If you haven't, please go ahead and subscribe and check out all of our past episodes. By the way, we've got a lot of them. We've also thrown a lot of clips out there. And like in our last episode, we put out some videos of just like the memorabilia from the space race that Judy had that, I can't put 290 pictures in an episode, but what I could do is I could give you guys the opportunity to see some of the personal items that she and her husband had. Everything from passes and personal memos and handwritten Valentine cards. It's all out there, so feel free to check that out. And if you would like something fun that I threw out there, is our race from about a year ago when you and I raced at the bouncy house. Yeah, so if you want to see if Scott can beat me in the bouncy house, you can check that out. I'm not going to tell you the answer to that. You have to go watch it either on Rumble or YouTube for that.
You guys can make an educated guess on who won that.
Maybe.
It could have been close.
Could have been.
Could have been an upset. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
So, that being said, in this episode, first of all, we also want to thank a few people.
Yeah.
We want to thank Andy McCollum. He's going to be on here in just a few minutes with Resource One. For those who might need something on a financial advising side, make sure you guys give him a call. His number is 636-458-1398. We appreciate him. He's also going to be in studio next week, and so we're really looking forward to that interview. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
He's gone to a couple Super Bowls. He won with the greatest show on turf. We're going to get into some stories and have a good time. So,
how long? Andy played for like 16 years?
I think 15, 16 years. I think it was 4 years with New Orleans, came to St. Louis, played 10 years for St. Louis almost exactly, and then he went up and played one more year with Detroit.
I can't imagine that many football players played longer than him.
No. I mean, he's definitely. I mean, Tom Brady's. There's a handful that go that long, but average life.
A handful in football, right? There can't be that many. I'm gonna look that up.
No, there's definitely not that many that played 15 plus years in the NFL. So, Andy had quite a career, and so a lot of knowledge too. Not only for those who don't know, not only does he have a lot of knowledge, but he took that knowledge and has been coaching the offensive line at the local Eureka High School here in St. Louis, and they have had a really good team for years on the high school circuit. So obviously some of that experience pays off, being able to pass that knowledge down. So the other one we want to bring up is Chris Sisk with CS Design. Chris did our opener. He's working on the website, our logo, a lot of things that you've seen of ours. He is the man. He does a lot of tech stuff behind the scene. He has a great team as well. So if you have any technology needed just, whether it be website, web design, just maybe something dealing with the structure, somebody to kind of guide you through, would you get the latest version of Microsoft Office, whatever, for your small business, give him a holler. His number is 573-436-3717. Once again, that's 573-436-3717. Again, we don't grow if you guys don't like and subscribe. So if I feel like I'm beating you a little bit with that, it's because I know we have a lot of friends on here. They keep telling me when I see them at the gym or church, whatever, hey, I listen to your podcast, but I keep forgetting to subscribe. So right now is your moment, right, Scott?
Just push it. That's it. And then you don't ever have to do it again. And if you don't want to listen to our show that day, you can just ignore it.
Ignore it, yeah.
Just ignore it.
And if you're subscribing, let's say through YouTube, and you would rather just listen to the audio, just so you know, we are out on just about everything on audio. So if it's Spotify, iTunes, Amazon podcast, iHeart podcast. I mean, I think we're...
Yeah, I suggest listening to it rather than watching it, just because you don't want to get distracted with our looks. Right? I'm just joking.
Well, with that, we appreciate your support, and we're going to jump in with our first guest here in just a moment with Andy McCollum. Well, thanks for joining us, and today for the NFL playoffs, we've got Andy McCollum in again to help us walk through this, and we'll see this week how it goes. So, Andy, thank you for joining us once again, and we appreciate your help on this.
You bet. Thanks for having me out on the show again. It's really enjoyable.
Good.
Well, thanks. Thank you. So last week, we got to talk about a few things. So let's go with game one, Jacksonville against KC. Did you see that one coming? I mean, we thought it would be a fun game. We both called KC, but Jacksonville was a lot closer than I thought it was. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it was interesting to watch the situation with Mahomes, quarterback there. He got hurt early in the game, and then I told my kids when he came back out at halftime, he was running around like there was no problem. So they obviously, gave him some, feel-good juice at halftime, made that ankle feel a little better. I'm sure they got the equipment right there in the locker room to do X-rays and whatnot. And if there's any danger, whether they're not going to let him go back out there and play. So I think it's just a matter of pain. I guess they're saying it's a high ankle sprain. So it'll be interesting how he does this week with it.
Well, I'll tell you what, he did a great throw off that 1 foot for a touchdown. Oh, yeah. I mean, he one-legged man still gets a touchdown. Yeah, I would never hold anything back on Mahomes. He again, last-minute Mahomes, he's been great lately. Just keeping them in the game. So
no doubt.
Did you see? He had a press conference, and they videoed him walking off the stage, and it looked like he was completely fine.
Well,
no limp, no nothing. So
yeah,
I think he'll be all right.
Okay.
Well, we'll have to see how this week plays, because this week now, the other game now, and I love games in the snow. I have to say, anytime I watch a football game in the snow, it's like one of my favorites to watch. And watching the Bengals and the Bills bruise it out was a delight. First of all, Andy, how was it playing in the snow? Was that a cool thing?
It's fun. I agree with you. It's fun to watch these games in the snow, and it was always fun to play in it too. When I was playing, there was a lot of, dome. We had a dome here, and I played in New Orleans. There's a dome down there, so I got those outdoor games, stolen from me from the dome and the turf. But nowadays they're making more of the open air stadiums, and anytime we played in the cold weather, we enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. A lot of guys didn't like it cold, but I kind of like it.
It's got to be different for a lineman, right? Than like a guy that's getting hit across the field.
That's true, and we don't have to, hold the ball or anything,
right.
So we're not worried about our fingers getting frozen or whatever. we just got to hold the defense. So
that's right.
Yeah. Well, so that game, what was your thoughts on the Bengals and Bills, man? And not only was it fun to watch the snow, but any thoughts from the play?
Yeah, it was surprising to me. They took a really quick lead, and they never showed any sign of giving it back. So, when they got out to that lead, I thought, okay, Bills will come back and make this close, and it's going to be a good game. But the Bengals kept the pressure on. I think their defense is fantastic. It's been good all year, and that's probably one of the reasons I'm probably picking them to win this week as well. Their defense and their special teams is outstanding. And you can see how well that quarterback and his offense are playing. So they're gonna be tough to beat even this week.
I agree. I actually, my heart goes to KC because they're in Missouri, but
yeah.
I have to say the Bengals have just looked. They remind me on the other side that we're going to get to the Eagles, because both teams seem like they just not necessarily. They both got good quarterbacks, but not necessarily like the superstar power you think of some teams like a Mahomes. But both teams are just have all season been solid. And both teams seem to have really good defenses. So I can't agree with you more there. I kind of lean towards the Bengals for the win. Joe Burrow just seems like he has been really, really, really good. So the last through this whole series of playoffs. So and really all
it
season.
seems like he's getting better as the season goes on too. So which is what you're looking for. What the goal is. So
absolutely.
I'm still sticking with KC.
You're still sticking with Patrick?
Yeah.
Mahomes? Yeah, I mean, that's a safe bet. Patrick is not a disappointment, I mean, here they are. They're one game away from the Super Bowl. So I would not hold anything back from that. That one is so close to me. Like, as I said before, I have a tug towards KC, but somehow logically I keep thinking the Bengals are going to maybe do the upset, especially with Mahomes' high ankle sprain now. Again, maybe it doesn't even matter to this game alone. But
yeah, I think like when they played the Jaguars, I think that game is going to sit in their memory before they go out on the field and play the Bengals. I think there's probably like they got a little kick in the pants, like we know we're good, but we know we're good, but like we almost squandered it because
yeah,
I don't know.
You could be.
Well, watching that game, when Mahomes came out and the backup, who was that, Henning?
Yeah.
The backup came in, drove him right down the field, which shows me they got a lot more weapons than just Mahomes.
Yeah.
I mean, on offense, they are stacked with all kinds of weapons. So it is hard to pick against them, but I'm doing it anyway.
All
All right. Well, let's talk about the other side. So the Eagles finally play. They play New York, and that one to me was, I knew the Eagles would probably win that game. The surprise was it was almost to me like New York didn't even show up. I mean, especially after the previous week. So, what did you think about that?
Yeah, they beat them up pretty good. Well, they won by more than 30 points, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it was
a pretty good match.
Yeah, New York had no chance.
I enjoyed watching that game. If you notice, Eagles, they can run the ball.
Yeah.
As well as Hurts plays, and he dominates. I mean, he might be MVP for the year, but they run the ball, and I like it because they did spend on the telecast team where they spend a lot of time talking about that offensive line and highlighting them, and what a good job they're doing. They got a really good offensive line. And I always like to see the offensive line get some props.
Absolutely. When you see when a good offensive line is there, a lot can happen with the running back and the quarterback having the time to throw. I mean, it really gives options for plays to develop. So,
Andy, yeah. I don't know a ton about football, and you can call me an idiot if this makes no sense about what I'm about to ask you. Linebackers, they would spy a guy like Hurts, right?
Yeah, a lot of times.
Yeah. Does that open up running game, or is that not a factor at all? Because that linebacker has to wait a split second to see, is he actually handing this ball off, or do I got to follow this guy out on the edge?
Not really.
No. Okay.
Linebacker reads on every play are going to be, run pass. They're taught in general, depending on the situation, down distance, that kind of thing. They're taught in general, you're going to got to stop the run first.
Okay.
So you'll notice anytime, like a 1st and 10 type play where it could be run or pass, they're coming forward to stop the run first, and they react if it's a pass.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah, that doesn't.
So no effect, essentially.
Probably not. But again, when the way Hurts can wing it around and the way he can run it, it does open up that box. You got to have less defenders in the box.
Yep.
For coverage, depending on the situation, obviously, but it does open up the run game. And if you can get, just 5 or 6 guys in the box as opposed to if they bring 7 down or something, then you're going to get more opportunities in the run game.
Yep.
Oh wow!
There you go.
So then the Eagles beat New York, and then on the other game, another one that was a little bit surprising to me because the Cowboys, played really well the week before against Tampa, and so I thought maybe they were finally hitting their stride, and it's like they hit a wall, and that was San Francisco versus Dallas. What were your thoughts there, Andy?
Yeah, I would like to see Dallas win, but just because I played against San Francisco so many times in my life, and don't like them. But they do look good. They look good, and but what stuck out to everybody is what the heck was Dallas doing on that last play?
Yeah, what was that?
That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
It almost seemed like it was on purpose. Like, we don't care.
Yeah.
No, I think they got a little. I think some coach got a little over fancy with their last second, Hail Mary play, and he's trying to run, linemen downfield to block for that quick curl, and then it looked like it's like the old hook and ladder play. I think it was supposed to be where that curl is going to pitch it back to the guy coming across, and then he's got a couple blocks in front of him. The problem was those linemen aren't fast enough to get down there in front of the curl route before the defender makes a play, and he just blew it up. So that's my guess. That's my guess at what the design. So.
But even before that play, I have to say Dallas just did not look good that game. I mean, especially coming off the previous week, I thought, I actually thought they would probably win that one. And I have to say, I was really that was my surprise. I actually called Dallas last week and thought we'd be talking about them, and that was a dud. 49ers won that. One of the things I do want to say is one of the things that's unique about the 49ers is they're doing it with their third string quarterback. And I did do a little research on him this week because I don't know a lot about Brock. Did you know a lot about Brock, Andy?
No, not really. I know he was. He was the last guy drafted a couple years ago. Or was it last year?
Yeah, he was.
What do they call that guy? Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Irrelevant. So he came from Iowa. He was a quarterback with Iowa.
Iowa State, right?
Iowa State, yeah. And one of the things I read about him as a quarterback during his sophomore season, he really had a conviction of God to make sure that he gave him the glory during each game. And so I was reading some stuff. I didn't realize what a strong believer he is, but I was, as I was looking forward, he's done several Sports Spectrum articles and several other articles that were out online, and just seems like a very, very grounded individial. So,
that's good to hear. I've not read much about him, but that's great to hear. Now I got to root for him.
I know that. I was all in on Eagles, and then I started reading these articles about him, and I'm like, man, I like hearing about fellow Christians and guys doing a good job, and it's hard not to like the guy who's kind of had to wait in the wings too, and the unlikely guy, Mr. Relevant. Most of those guys never even make the roster, and to see that he's made it not only to being a quarterback, but he is one game away from the Super Bowl. That's pretty cool. That's special.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I read somewhere where who was their starter? Garoppolo might be ready to play this week.
Yeah,
I couldn't see them not playing Purdy though.
No,
he's been playing.
Yeah, what would happen?
I don't know.
I think they've already said that that Brock is their man. So I don't think that's changing. Okay. Yeah, I think they've said that that he's led them through this playoffs. They're not gonna mess up with the chemistry there.
Brock Purdy Wally pipped him. You ever heard the story of Wally Pip?
Oh yeah, Wally Pip. That's why he can't get hurt.
That's right. Don't miss games.
Yeah. That's I remember that story when I was playing. I'd remember that story every time.
Do you
get a little ankle, get a little something? I'm like, I can't miss practice.
You never know who's behind you.
Look at all these other guys. They got these big giant linemen they drafted this year. I got to get out there. These guys are going to take my job. So. Yeah, that story stuck with me a lot.
Oh, man.
Well, we kind of saw that a little bit firsthand with the Rams, too. Once Kurt Warner started struggling a little bit and had to take a game off, they quickly brought in the guy who would take over, right? So, and became their man for a little while. Yeah, so.
Yeah, Mark Bolger.
Bolger. Yeah, he came in.
St. Louis by storm, too.
Yeah, well. Not quite the same way as Kurt Warner. Not the same story. I mean, he was drafted in the middle of the draft, so he wasn't a high nor a low pick. So
maybe I just like growing up in St. Louis. I say this about every St. Louis player. It's like, oh yeah, St. Louis loved him. St. Louis loved it. It's like just if you are good or you become beloved here very quickly.
Yeah.
We got great fans here. They don't dislike anybody.
Exactly. We do have great fans. And for all of our sports, I'm curious to see how this soccer team does. But, I mean, I think that for a baseball town, I think that the city embraced the Rams. I mean, even in their last years when they were not very good at all, they were avoiding blackouts at the time because they had enough fans in a seat on a losing team that hadn't won in like 11 years or 12 years. So they hadn't been over 500. I want to say... At that time, it was either, I want to say 11 years or something like that they hadn't been over 13 wins. And I even remember, I was telling the guys the story the other day about how the Rams played New Orleans for the 10-year anniversary. You remember that when they had the 10-year anniversary? You had just retired, and we went down there, and the lucky coin, Lucky Salah's lucky coin, and how New Orleans was really good. They were on their stretch of going to Super Bowls and going deep in playoffs. And the Rams had won, I think that was like game 8 of that season, and they were like, 1 win, 7 losses. And Salah said they're going to win this game, and you're like, yeah, no. somehow that became the second win of the Ram. They had 2 wins that year, and that was their second win against a great team. That somehow they showed up. Maybe they got a little motivation that day from the Cardinals doing the World Series, but that was really a fun time there in 2011. So, anyways, that was
that just shows that's what they say. Any given
Sunday,
Sunday to beat somebody. So
absolutely. Yep. So we're going to find out this Sunday who's going to the Super Bowl. So let's see here. Who do you think, San Francisco or the Eagles?
Well, like I said earlier, I like the Eagles. I like their defense. I think they got one of the top rated, run defenses in the league. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if it's number 1 or not, but it's close. And then like I talked about earlier, their offensive line is a bunch of studs. So they do a great job.
Yeah.
Protecting those guys and making holes in the running game. So I'm going with the Eagles.
Yeah. Same
here, man. So you and me, Bengals versus the Eagles. And you got KC versus Eagles.
Yeah.
All right. When you're on a show next week, we'll find out.
I told you it's going to be I told you that before the playoffs start, it's KC, Philly. There's no other teams that are as good as them.
They're.
I don't know. That's what I thought.
You one of those guys say, "Yeah, I predicted that before the season started."
No, but I just think when you watch KC, you watch Philly, and then if you think of the Dallas Cowboys versus San Francisco, I just don't think the Dallas Cowboys have a winning environment. I don't.
Yeah, you can definitely see that.
I just think they're good, talented, awesome players that just don't have it. And you watch the Eagles, and you're like, man, they got it. They're well orchestrated. Everything is the way it's supposed to be all the time.
Yeah. I
don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think that's why going into the playoffs, they both had buys, right? KC and Eagles. I would put right behind them. I thought the Bills were right there. And I thought the Bengals were just slightly below the Bills. I thought with the Eagles they were going to dominate. I didn't see anything getting in their path really to get in the Super Bowl. But on the other side, I did see KC. I mean, they've had a lot of close games. Now they have pulled out wins. Mm-hmm. But I thought on any given Sunday, and I thought Bills or Bengals could cause them a little bit of trouble. Bills are out, so now it's got to be the Bengals who's going to do it. But I think that one I can go either way. I'm really like a 50-50 man on that one. So.
Yeah, well, the first week we did this, we were talking about bye weeks and how that affects quarterbacks, all that. I didn't watching the way they played Jaguars. I didn't think they played that bad. I mean, they could have played way better, and I think they will against the Bengals, which is why I think they're going to win. But I think that off week, affected their rhythm a little bit, their timing. So I don't know.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Well,
we'll see.
We will find out next week. And for those who are watching, we're going to have Andy on the show next week, so we'll have him face to face, and we'll go over who's going to the Super Bowl, and maybe he can give us a little insight of how they prep because he's been to a couple.
I'm going to ask him all. Andy, I'm going to ask you all the questions. I'm going to ask: can you eat before the game? Are you too nervous? What are you eating? Do you eat more? I'm going to ask you all those weird questions.
All right.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, Andy, for being on the show. And for those watching, remember, you can support Andy. He now does financial advising with Resource One, has a great team. We trust them, and we recommend them to you highly. Andy, if they want to get a hold of you, what's the best number for them to call you at?
Best way is, you can go on our website, rs1a.com. Or just call at our office over here in Missouri is 636-458-1798. We also have an office over in Illinois, Fallon. But just call that number here in the Missouri number. That'd be great to get connected.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And folks, you heard it from him. Give him a call. Check him out. And I promise you his team won't disappoint. And Andy, thanks again, brother.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Everybody will get to see how big you are. I'm 6'5", 240. We'll stand up next to each other so everybody can see how big you are.
I'm not that big anymore.
Oh, I know that. But you're still tall. You got a presence.
He looks more like a baseball player, and you look like you're starting to fill out like a football player, buddy.
I know. We'll meet in the middle.
I'll bring some donuts for you.
That would be awesome for the Donut Brothers. And
All right, guys.
Thank you, Andy.
yeah, thanks, Andy. All right, well, we appreciate Andy being on the show, and we're looking forward to having him in the studio next week. So moving on from our lineup, though, we have an exciting one today because MLB announced some good stuff in the past 24 hours. We have two guys who entered the Hall of Fame. First one is Fred McGriff, and for those who are watching, watch this. This is going to be a fun little clip of his highlights. For those listening, Fred McGriff.
He knew all the way that one was gone.
McGriff sends it a long way to left. It's gone. McGriff greets him on the first pitch. Gone. A mammoth shot for Fred McGriff.
I wonder how many hitting coaches he would.
This one is gone, folks.
All right, so Fred McGriff, career 284 hitter, 377, 509. McGriff played for 6 teams: the Braves, the Blue Jays, Cubs, Devil Rays, Dodgers, and Padres. Who do you think he's most known for, though? I always think of him one of 2 teams, but I'm curious.
I'm going to either say the Cubs or the Devil Rays, strangely enough.
Really?
When I picture Fred McGriff, I just picture him having that white home uniform on with the funky green Devil Rays on the front of his jersey. I don't know why, but that's what I picture.
See, I'm the first 2, Blue Jays and Braves. I remember distinctly him being there. So he played 19 seasons. That's a long time for a baseball player. Most baseball players don't get 19 years in their career. I mean, let's be honest. That's getting up there like Albert years.
Yeah, 19's reason enough just to consider someone for the Hall of Fame to begin with.
And productive at the time, right?
Yeah.
So he was originally a Yankee draft pick in 1981. So here's another Yankee pick who goes somewhere else and does really good. You know who else came up about that same time? Willie McGee, Yankee pick, traded to the Cardinals. So we talked about him last episode. McGriff was traded to Toronto as a minor leaguer in the Mike Morgan, Dale Murray swap. Murray, I read a great case for his introduction to the Hall of Fame yesterday as well.
And what was that?
You know what? He had very similar numbers to our next one, Scott Rowland.
Okay.
So,
all right.
and they were making the comparison. Scott Rowland had a few more Gold Gloves, but there was a lot of comparisons there. It was an interesting. They said now that Scotty's in, there's an opportunity for some other players. You got to look at the total package, kind of like we discussed about Scott. So,
well, before we move on, are you interested in discussing how these people are elected, the process, and why it is that the sports writers pick?
Well, you tell me.
I mean, I know the history that the sports writers were the ones that first started statistics. They were one that, curated league-wide access to stats and doing all these things. And when the Hall of Fame was opened up, the writers were the ones considered closest to the. So I understand the origin of it, but it just doesn't compute in my brain why someone that I don't know. I guess like an example would be like if you voted for a Hall of Fame lawyer and you had the desk clerks voting in the lawyer. When you have all these lawyers that have intimate knowledge and understanding of stats and all these things.
Well, the game. What you're saying is the game has evolved, and those who elect these Hall of Famers, it should shift because today I think the other part is because we got more than just the normal stats. We now got WAR. We look at we look at metrics in a way different over the last 20 years or so. The shift
Right.
of metrics has shifted dramatically, right?
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, there's a lot of changes that have sped up the game. I mean, we're going to see some of those again this year with the shift and the bases we've discussed. So I think what you're saying is it time for the shift to also continue or to move from the sports writers to, you know, maybe the players union, right?
Well, I just think if you have two groups, right, and which one has more credibility, picking who would deserves to be in essentially their Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the players that go in there, so wouldn't it make sense that the players vote who goes in there?
Or maybe each team elects a player that represents their team, and that's how it's done. So yeah, you know, let's say if there's 32 teams, that there's 32 players that are elected, and so they find players, either current or past players that represent that team, or maybe it's two players per team, whatever. That allow those votes. So
yeah, it's just, I think over the last 20 years, it's kind of like, well, that guy didn't. 20, 30 years, that guy didn't treat me well, so I'm not voting for him.
Well, we even saw one guy who should have been, no question, unanimous, not be unanimous because one of the writers said, well, I don't think anybody should ever be unanimous, so I'm just not going to vote for him. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy.
It just doesn't even make sense.
Right.
But how often does that happen that we don't even know about?
Well, and again, what are they looking for? I mean, I think the other part is the sports writers are always looking for the certain stats to get into the Hall of Fame. And when we get into the second player, and really even when you look at Fred McGriff, you really got to look at the career, okay? I mean, you know, let's talk about him for a second here. He retired with 495 career home runs, okay? Tied with Lou Gehrig for the most history among active players not in the 500 club, okay? You would say that is a pretty cool stat.
Yeah.
But look how long it took him to get in the Hall of Fame.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's just, it doesn't, okay, now he's...
Let's talk about durability. This guy played an average of 149 games a year from 1988 to 2002. And during the player strike of the 94-95, that was probably what cost him a shot at 500 homers, right?
Yeah.
So he was hot at that time. That was in his peak years, okay? So you just look at... he's like 61 homers in 257 games over 2 seasons. I mean, this guy could play. He could run. I mean, we talked about how many outfielders usually hurt their legs.
Mm-hmm.
He was still playing outfield all the way till like his last year. I mean, he was a very durable, very good fielder, very good accomplished hitter. He hit homers, but not just homers. He hit a lot of doubles. He hit all around the field. I mean, he was He was a Hall of Famer. Exactly. It just took him way, way too long to get there. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It took this long. I guess maybe that. I mean, I think that's part of my thinking too. Is why does it take this guy that long? Like, why isn't he voted in first time if he was this good? Yeah. Yeah, or at least after a few. Maybe other people didn't know all the stuff about him. I mean, I get that if you were sports writing in the sport, but you're kind of, let's say, especially go back 10 years ago where you had the National League and American League weren't even playing hardly at all. And so you were a National League writer. Maybe you didn't know as much about the American League unless you went to the World Series against that team. I mean, there's instances where you may not be as aware of the complete work of a player. But, you know, the next guy we're going to get into, and I want to play a clip here for him too, because it was pretty special. He's a special talent. We talked about him. We made his case, and apparently so did everybody else, because he is now in the Hall of Fame, and we've been mentioning him. That's Scott Rowland. Here, watch his heartwarming video here, and then we'll get into him a little bit too.
I'll make it there. Hall of Famer Scott Rowland.
That's what goes through my mind right there. That's the answer. That's
And so, if you know anything about Roland, he is definitely a family man, which is why the announcement was with his family. So he is in. Hopefully you enjoyed that video as much as we did. It was cool to see him get to tell his parents and then get to celebrate nationally on TV with his family. So congratulations, Scott Rowland. Well deserved from being a St. Louisan. I can tell you some of the greatest third base plays I've ever seen came from him. Though I will say that there's a guy now manning third base for St. Louis that's pretty dang good too. He actually already has 2 Gold Gloves more than Scott, which is crazy when you think about an active player having 10 Gold Gloves right now.
In a row.
Yeah, I mean, you know, is there a better third baseman than him? But let's just say that there was a time prior to Arenado where there was a Scott Rowland, and between Philly and St. Louis, he spent 10 years dominating the third base. There just wasn't. He was Rookie of the Year. I didn't realize how early he had come up. I guess I'd forgotten that. But yeah, he was 21 when he came up, and he was an 8-time All-Star, 7-time Gold Glover over 17 seasons, and he played a long career too. 17 seasons, 4 teams. Mostly known for his time as a young player with the Phillies, and then of course helping the Cardinals go to the World Series in '04, where they would lose to Boston. But he had they were tied, and he had the game-winning home run that sent them to the World Series to play. That would have been Red Sox.
Yeah,
first Red Sox one. So that's that is Scott Rowland, and well deserved. But we were talking about the Hall of Fame, and I want to kind of get into Scott Rowland because he's another classic example. I kind of want them so we can bring them both up. But Scott Rowland, you look at one stat, he doesn't really have a stat that goes Hall of Famer because he has 600 homers or because he's top 5 in doubles. But you look at homers, you look at doubles, you look at Gold Gloves, you look at overall body of work, World Series win, World Series gone. How do you not say this guy isn't a Gold Glover?
Right.
So,
well,
Hall of
it's
Famer.
called a Hall of Fame. Yeah, I think he falls under the category of baseball. Fame. I don't know.
Fame or lore, yeah. You know, well, when I look at it, when I think of a player that dominates a sport for 10 years, a decade in a sport that dominates his area, to me, that automatically tells me that guy should probably be in the Hall of Fame. Because
10 years, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because I mean, you think about it. I mean, how many people dominate their sport for 10 years? I mean, only usually the best, and I'm not saying that it has to be the only criteria, but I definitely think that is, in my opinion, one of the first things I always ask is how long did he dominate the game?
Okay.
I look at Scott Rowland. He basically had, a little over 6 years with Philly, a little under 6 years with St. Louis. He had 12 years where he basically dominated the sport from beginning to end of that time.
I like that time frame. 10 years of dominance. Yeah.
Yeah. If people said that guy is one of the top 2 or 3 outfielders, or that guy is the best or one of the best third basemen of that 10-year period, you can say that with Scott Rowland. They're in the late 90s to early 2000s. They're in that 10-year period. You find me a better third baseman, it's going to be really, really hard. You have to kind of get towards the end of his career to see a guy that we're going to be talking about in a little while who's going to be coming up next year in the Hall of Fame. So, you really just kind of have to.
Yeah, I think there should be a baseline. I mean, there's got to be a way that they can formulate a little bit, at least have a baseline for Hall of Fame numbers, and then extrapolate even more extraordinary numbers out of that. So maybe the baseline is, you can't be qualified unless you hit 300 homers. If you hit somebody hits 500, then that's extraordinary number. If his other numbers aren't as great, maybe that extraordinary number puts him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's hard to say because you got to go player by player. I think you get a guy who hits a lot of homers was a liability in the field. Maybe you don't give him quite as much. But again, we're looking at like Fred McGriff. We're looking at Scott Rowland. These guys, in my opinion, if not year one, certainly year 2 or 3 should have been in the Hall of Fame. It shouldn't have taken either one as long as they took to get to the Hall of Fame because they both, when you look at the body of work of both of these amazing players, to me there's no question, when I think of greatness, when I think of somebody dominating for a decade, they both dominated for 10 plus years in their craft. There was a period of time where they were the standard in baseball.
Right.
And not for 1 year. It wasn't a 1 year come and gone. They dominated for a period of time where if you would have said, who's the best, one of the best outfielders in baseball, you would have said Fred McGriff, hands down. Slugger, Fred McGriff. And then if there was a third baseman during Scott Rowland's time, you would have said, yeah, Scott Rowland. I mean, there's maybe a handful that were just as good at the time, but Scott Rowland was definitely one of 1 or 2 or 3 names that you come to think of during that period.
And what I mean by like one extraordinary number, like when I think of that, I think of like a Ricky Henderson. If Ricky Henderson played for 15 years and had a below average below average home runs, below average doubles, all that, but he played for 15 years, and the one thing he did really well was just steal bases. He was the best
base threat on
base stealer for 15 years, 10, 15 years. That warrants. That's super extraordinary. That's Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he dominated his craft for 10 years, which his craft was stealing bases, right? So I want to get into this next guy that we got to talk to about because he missed the Hall of Fame, and it shocked me. 2 things, because he's a good player, but he was 11 votes short, and that's Todd Helton. And the other thing that I find very interesting is we talk about dominating. One of the things I also think about is if you were the name or face of a team, okay? And Todd Helton was. There's no question for about a 10-year period of Colorado Rockies. Obviously, there are younger teams that they don't have the history of a Cardinals or Dodgers franchise. But I think, 30, 40, 50 years ago, let's say Todd Helton doesn't go to the Hall of Fame.
He will.
I know he will. He's 11 votes short. But let's just say he didn't. 30 years from now, they'll look back and say, that guy should, because Todd Helton was the face of the franchise for 10 years plus. I mean, over 10 years. Oh, yeah. So he was the
his
face.
Whole career.
Yeah. Right. His whole career. But I mean, they had younger guys starting to come up. But I mean, he was the man for when people identify Colorado Rockies. The first thing you thought of was Todd Helton.
Yeah. I just think that didn't go away for me. Like even when he was on his last leg, when you go play Todd Helton was at first. That's just what.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, kind of like Albert Pujols was with the Cardinals, right? I mean, he was still a threat, still could do damage. Absolutely.
But the whole sport, why wouldn't you vote him in now?
Well,
you're going to do it in 5 years?
Again, 11 votes short. It makes you wonder why couldn't 11 more voters have seen his case? I mean, it would have been nice. What does a man have to do? Again, sometimes it isn't always the stats as much as he was the face of one of the youngest franchises for over 10 years. So why? What?
Right. If Todd Helton isn't a Hall of Famer for the Rockies and baseball, what?
Who is? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there would be, but if your number goes from 100 or whatever, down to 10.
Well, let's move on to. We got 3 players who next year will be first-timers that we need to talk about. A little bit about their case and just a little bit about, their career.
We got Beltre.
Yeah, let's start with that one.
Lauer.
Yeah.
Utley.
Yep, I'm putting them up so people
you got a ranking, 1, 2, 3?
I don't have them ranked. I just said they were 3 guys that I thought we needed to talk about because they come up first-timers next year.
Yeah.
Beltre.
I think they're all first ballot.
Yeah, well, let's talk about him here. We talk about Beltre. Okay, he had 3,166 hits, 477 home runs, short of the 500.
Mm-hmm.
But his wins above replacement, 93.5. Again, right at the end of Scotty Rowland's kind of careers when Beltre kind of really starts to peak. And man, what a career! And I go back and say, for about 10 years. One of the standards of third base. When you thought third baseman, you could not think about this guy. I mean, he was such a great player.
3,000 hits.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's automatic. That's one of those numbers that's just automatic.
Yeah. Well, and his defense. You know, one of the things I noticed when the Cardinals played the Rangers in the World Series was that he covered so much ground it allowed their shortstop to play further over towards second because he was just that good.
Yeah, Andrus.
So,
I think Andrus was their shortstop then.
I don't remember who it was at the time. I just remember that I kept thinking, why doesn't Tony have him hit towards third? Because there seems to be a big gap, and when they did, he got to it. And so I knew.
Hall of Fame third baseman.
Yeah. All right, Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer, we talk about faces of a franchise, face of the franchise of the Twins. Really, they hadn't had a face since Kirby Puckett, and then comes Joe Mauer, and he becomes the franchise face for...
More than that, I think he was the face of MLB for a few years.
Yeah.
I remember on the face of MLB The Show. He was in every commercial you could find. He was the face of baseball for a while.
So he was a career 306 hitter.
Yeah.
I mean, over 300, that's pretty good.
Yep.
All right. His 55.2 career WAR ranked 7th among catchers.
Yeah.
So, all right. And all the others are...
and he's a catcher. I mean, shoe in.
Well, you would think so. I think so, too. Again, I go back to, it's almost the Todd Helton comparison, but he was the face of a franchise for over 10 years. How do you not?
Right.
Somebody that almost qualifies, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the way that it's all voted on and everything, he might not be first ballot, but he is a Hall of Famer, and he will be Hall of Famer. But now we got to wait. We'll probably have to wait.
Yeah, a couple
all
years.
The politics to go through and all.
I think Beltre goes in next year. Mauer, I think, will be high. I don't know if he gets all the votes in year one. Next guy, though, Chase Utley. Okay,
Yeah.
Philly, 5-year peak with the Phillies. Dominant among second basemen. Mass 39.7 WAR over that time. Nearly doubling the next second baseman of Brian Roberts. Okay.
Yeah.
1,885 hits, 259 homers. But 64.5 career WAR is close to the average for a Hall of Fame second baseman. So, I mean, his case is a little weaker. I think if you're going to make him in there, you've really got to look at the body. This goes back to looking at the body of work, who he was. He was a second baseman. How many second basemen are there in the Hall of Fame, especially over the last 20 years? I don't remember too many going in the Hall of Fame who were second baseman.
No, and we're going to go back to the voting process, but he's a guy that if you had him on a list, doesn't matter what list, and you had people vote on it, they would, current and former MLB players, they would vote for Chase Utley to be a Hall of Famer.
Oh, I agree.
It wouldn't even be a question. If you ask anybody in the Major League Baseball right now, is Chase Utley a Hall of Famer, they would say yes. But again, is he going to get voted in? We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know because we don't know how Chase spoke to that one guy that one time after a road trip, and he's asking dumb questions. So,
yeah. No, I agree. Chase Utley had a great career. When you think of the best second baseman in baseball for the last 20, 30 years, his name is, if it's not number one, certainly in the top two.
Yeah.
So I can't really remember too many second basemen above him. I know Houston had a good second. I'm just trying to think. There's maybe definitely no more than a handful, but definitely.
Well, yeah, especially his positions. That's a good position to get in with those numbers. I mean.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Hall of Famer in my book, though.
Well, I agree. Now I want to get into one that we talked about in our last episode, but we didn't get a chance to extrapolate a whole lot on it, and that was the trade that Minnesota did. Lopez. Yeah. You got Luis Raz. Is that how you say his name? He's a good player.
Yeah.
I don't follow Minnesota enough to know, or the Marlins enough to know. But Marlins get him. Apparently he's a great fielder, and they send up Lopez.
Why? But why? Like, you're getting Luis Arias, and you're giving up Lopez, who's I would consider him a premier pitcher in the big leagues. I think a lot of teams would like him. Obviously, Minnesota wanted him, but like for the Marlins, like why? They're just gonna. This is what I see happening. Luis Arias becomes good, like they say, and then he's just gonna get traded away, like Pablo just did. It's just like.
Well, and he was an all-star last season, so I would agree. It's all about controllability down there. We know that.
Didn't they? He just signed for $7 million with them, right? They don't even want to pay him that. They didn't even want to pay him that, so they just got rid of his salary.
Well, I was a little shocked at that, but I have to say I think Minnesota, they got a great deal. I mean, it's hard to get good starting pitchers who can. He throws for strikes. He is the kind of guy when you go into playoffs who can help you win games.
Yeah, and he's young. He doesn't he's going to give you innings, good innings. I think probably the Minnesota probably was like, are you are you sure? Sure you want to do this trade?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at it, and again, I mean, just I think Minnesota gets the upper hand on that one. We'll see. I mean, time tells, but I never think of second base as the best position in baseball. Anytime you can get a great 1-2 pitcher, those are hard to come by. A little harder to come by than top second.
For $7 million. That's
yeah. I mean,
I think Minnesota's laughing right now.
That is true. Well, let's shift for a second. I want to go back to football, and I want to bring up a guy who has had a career a long time in Green Bay. Okay, but there are a lot of rumors, and he is not doing anything to quash them. Okay, about him possibly being traded. Aaron Rodgers, been since Brett Favre left, has been the face of the Green Bay Packers. But is his welcome worn out? He doesn't, it seems like he's kind of coming to a point where he's starting to think it's time to move on. Just based on the comments that have been out there, I've read a lot of these comments, and none of them seem to be quashing any of the rumors. They kind of actually seem to be stoking more of it. So does Green Bay, he signed, but if Green Bay trades him, I want to read this, they will free up, let me see here. All right, so moving on from Rodgers would require the Packers to make a trade, given an outright release would incur an untenable $100 million salary cap charge. A deal would reduce that figure by a more palatable $40 million. And it would signal obviously them going into a rebuild mode. So,
right.
If the Packers are another team, then they would owe him $59.5 million. So for 2023, so he is. Great quarterback.
Positioned well.
Yeah, I mean, but what I have a couple different feelings here. So one of them is he's been the face of the franchise. Okay, the other is he still has value. Green Bay, if it's time to go on a rebuild, and they did draft #1 pick a couple years ago when they had that year that they didn't do so well. They used their #1 pick on a quarterback, so they got a young quarterback into waiting. Is it time to see what he can do?
Jordan Love?
Yeah.
I would imagine that he'll stay. We're creatures of comfort, so I would imagine if this gets too crazy and everything's, I would imagine. I don't know. Do you think he's asking to be traded, or do you think that's something that the Green Bay Packers are considering themselves?
Well, his comments are what really brings it to me. So, let me see if I can find something.
I just can't. I mean, unless he's looking at next year, both of them, the team and Aaron, and they're saying we're not going to win.
Yeah.
Then that might be a reason to. But I can't imagine.
So he comes back. He based on the offer they gave him. Okay. For negotiating into the following season, he says, I don't think there will be a scenario where I would come back and that would be the number. Definitely things would have to shift. Okay, so that was one of them. And then he also came back and said, to be open to the possibility, if I want to keep playing, that it might be somewhere else. I understand that. I understand they may want to move on and go younger at a number of positions, and that's part of the game. Again, he's not saying like, hey, trade me or anything like that, but he seems to have this realistic shift that, maybe Green Bay's, they got the young quarterback behind me. They've got a lot of things going on. I bring a little luggage because of the last couple of years with the COVID stuff and my belief system. And it seems like, my relationship with the front office seems to be changing. That dynamic seems to be changing. And it may be a good time for me to have a change of scenery and for them to start the process of going young again.
Yeah, I think he's probably positioning himself to be okay with whatever move that they make. It sounds like he doesn't really know if they're going to add anything to be successful. And if they don't do that, he's saying, I understand.
Yeah, he wants to win. Yeah. He's 39 years old. You don't want to give your body a beat up. He's already made money. I mean, the guy's making crazy money. So at some point, it's not about the money. It's he loves kind of like Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady probably makes as much in advertising as he does in playing, right? So I can't imagine that Tom Brady is worried about money at this point, though he is going through divorce. So
you'd be surprised about how much more money people that have money want money.
Well, that's true. That is true, but I will say that Aaron Rodgers, wherever he goes, I've kind of been a fan of his. I liked him when he was behind Brett Favre. I thought it was a good move when he took over, and I've enjoyed his career. I have some friends of mine who are diehard Green Bay Packer fans. Cutsingers are huge Packer fans, but
he's way better than Tom Brady in my book.
Yeah, well, there you go. I want to move on to our next one. Another guy, we're having some guys here who are stuff is going on, and the next guy is another superstar that could possibly be traded. He's been the face of a franchise, and that's Patrick Kane with the Chicago Blackhawks in NHL news. And, good player, had a great career there. He has the rights. His contract keeps him from not moving on, but, I mean, the Blackhawks look like they're probably going to have to go into a rebuild mode here shortly. I mean, they kind of brought up him and Toes at the same time, and they're both kind of between salary and salary caps, between just how the NHL works.
Yeah, I don't know that as well as you do.
Yeah, it looks like NHL, it's hard to stay up top forever and ever. You really have to be able to draft young players, or you have to be able to find deep players later in the draft, and it just seems tougher. I think with technology, too. I've talked to a couple of baseball scouts, and they said that, you go back in the early 2000s when let's say 99, 98, when Albert was found. Okay, well, the reason why Albert was drafted in the 13th round and nobody had heard of him is he played for Maplewood College in Kansas City. He goes, at that time, we didn't go to Maplewood College in Kansas City. We went to elite schools that were known for putting out pitchers. We went to high schools that were known in areas to put out particular players. And, you would get rumblings every now and then of somebody, and so you go visit them. And that's kind of what happened with Albert. Somebody got a rumbling. There was two scouts who kind of scouted him out. I think one was Tampa, I think maybe, or Marlins. I can't remember. And the other one was St. Louis. But, St. Louis got him 13th round. That being said, he goes, now you fast forward, by 2010, Josh, Albert's out there. We go to YouTube. We look at it on YouTube. We find out about these superstars in high school, in college. Then we don't show up and watch 100 games of them. We'll go and watch like 2 or 3 games. We'll bring a bunch of equipment with us and put it up in the stands, and then we'll take it back and do all the measurements, and we'll figure out. We know what the potential of that guy typically is with through technology, and we'll tell you if he's going to develop into a power hitter. We'll tell you if he's going to be, a superstar pitcher. He said, doesn't mean it's 100%, but we have all these pieces of equipment to help us to narrow that gap down, which is why we're seeing more successful earlier round picks in baseball, and you're not finding as many gold nuggets in the later rounds like you used to. I mean, it still happened, but it's just not as prominent as, it used to be in baseball through the 80s and 90s. Whether you were drafted in the first round or the last round, you pretty much did not know who was really going to work out. So very few of them that you had a sure deal on. So
yeah, for sure. They used to have more leagues too, that guys had more chances to develop, and
I mean, so Blackhawks, do they trade Kane, or do they keep him? That's going to be an interesting deal, because that is one of those ones that'll signal again, kind of like the previous one where we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. If that happens, they're facing a franchise, and it signals that they're going youth, and they're going to have to, to their fans, the next few years is going to be a little bit rougher for us. So
yeah, it sounds like just based on their situation, they're gonna deal them, get some young guys.
that's what I would think. I mean, well, time will tell. Now, he has a say-so in it. That's the other thing. I mean, they're going to have to deal him to a winner. He has to give up his no-trade clause. So, but he's old enough. I think he values wanting to win, so I can see that happening.
Absolutely.
So, all right, NBA, we got to talk about this because it was unique. LeBron James back in the news. I mean, he's kind of towards the end of his career now, still playing well. But the other day, he scored 46 points. And that made him the first player to ever score 40-plus points against every NBA team out there.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty kind of a cool ordeal. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was worth at least bringing up and saying.
Only guy ever.
Only guy ever.
That's
40 points against every team.
Have you done anything in your life that you're the only guy to do it?
No.
Besides marry your wife?
That's true. That is true. And have my kids.
Yeah,
they're mine.
That's right.
So, all right, so we got to get into a little bit of faith and culture. To kick this one off, I'm going to show a clip here real quick, so we'll be quiet so you guys can hear the clip. This is a clip of Kevin McCarthy. He has this heated exchange with a reporter, but I think there's a lot more to this that we need to discuss here. So hold on here. If you're watching or listening, you pay attention because this is some good stuff.
Intel committee. Is Santos on the Intel committee? Am I allowing Schiff to be on other committees? Go right ahead.
Respectfully, thank you. Because you have direct power over who goes on intelligence, but you also will be able to raise for your full House, taking off other Democrats, perhaps Representative Omar. But you have said that lying to us is something that means you should be removed from the intelligence committee. But why is it not a factor?
Well, let me be very.
This is a man who should not be on committee, something you do have power over.
He's got elected by his district. So. Okay, let me be very clear and respectful to you. You ask me a question. When I answer it, it's the answer to your question. You don't get to determine whether I answer your question or not, okay? In all respect. Thank you. No, let's answer her question. You just raised a question. I'm going to be very clear with you. The Intel Committee is different. You know why? Because what happens in the Intel Committee, you don't know. What happens in the Intel Committee, although the secrets are going on in the world, other members of Congress don't know. What did Adam Schiff do as the chairman of the Intel Committee? What Adam Schiff did, use his power as a chairman and lie to the American public. Even the Inspector General said it. When Devin Nunes put out a memo, he said it was false. When we had a laptop, he used it before an election to be politics and say that it was false and said it was the Russians. When he knew different, when he knew the Intel, if you talk to John Radcliffe, DNI, he came out ahead of time and says there's no intel to prove that, and he used his position as chairman, knowing he has information the rest of America does not, and lied to the American public. When a whistleblower came forward, he said he did not know the individual, even though his staff had met with him and set it up. So no, he does not have a right to sit on that. But I will not be like Democrats and play politics with these, where they removed Republicans from committees and all committees. So yes, he can serve on a committee, but he will not serve on Intel, because it goes to the national security of America. And I will always put them first, all right? And if you want to talk about Swalwell, let's talk about Swalwell, because you have not had the briefing that I had. I had the briefing and Nancy Pelosi had the briefing from the FBI. The FBI never came before this Congress to tell the leadership of this Congress that Eric Swalwell had a problem with a Chinese spy until he served on Intel. So it wasn't just us who were concerned about it. The FBI was concerned about putting a member of Congress on the Intel Committee that has the rights to see things that others don't because of his knowledge and relationship with a Chinese spy. They brought it to the works of the leaders. I've got that briefing. So I do not believe he should sit on that committee. And I believe there's 200 other Democrats that can serve on that committee. So this has nothing to do with Santos. Santos is not on the Intel Committee. But you know what? Those voters elected Schiff, even though he lied. Those voters elected Swalwell, even though he lied to the American public too. So you know what? I'll respect his voters too, and they'll serve on committees, but they will not serve on a place that has national security relevance because integrity matters to me. That's the answer to your question.
All right. So that was Kevin McCarthy, and he was kind of giving, going back and forth with the reporter. But the gist of it is he kicks off Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff from the Intel Committee. So
Yeah.
seems like it would be a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
But it's not.
It is, but they have to cause a big stink, right?
Well, I mean, one only slept with the spy, and the other one is habitual liar, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, why do you think it's so hard for the other side to see this? Because I have to be honest with you, I have been shocked at the response of people who are like, oh my goodness, they should be on there. I'm thinking, why would you put somebody who slept with a Chinese spy in your Intel Committee? I mean, that's got to be one of the most, that's you're getting classified, very secretive stuff in that committee. Why would you trust somebody who is not trustworthy to be in that position? And it's not like there isn't, as Kevin McCarthy says in that clip, it's not like there's not 200 other Democrats that could be chosen from. He's like, look, I'm not saying they can't be on committees. Their people elected them. I'm not saying that we can't, but I'm saying on this committee, those particular guys, because of their character, and we talked about this, character matters. And I want to keep that up there because we've been talking about character. And character is who we are, even in the little things. And these guys, even in the big things, have shown that their character is very questionable. Why would you put somebody in that kind of a position? I say kudos to McCarthy for doing that. I think it's certainly the right move from my perspective, but I just find it odd that, to me, what seems so logical, what seems so rational, what seems like a no-brainer, why were they on there to begin with is really the bigger question I want to ask.
Well, because they had power.
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy kicked out two people that wanted power from a party that likes power. I mean, both parties like power. So, I mean, if Kevin McCarthy got kicked off like Eric Swalwell, he would be throwing a little hissy fit too. It's just people that like power are politicians. They like power, so when they lose power, they don't like it.
Yeah.
They throw little hissy fits. And Eric Swalwell, when he's talking, sounded like a 12-year-old kid that got kicked out of a party.
Yeah, I agree. And then even some of his responses on social media where he's, now that we're not there, I got more time to create trouble for him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like,
well, and he's reportedly going to run for Feinstein's Senate seat. So, I just find it very interesting. Hopefully, people in his district wake up and maybe look at somebody who has a little more character for their party. So, moving on, let's go to our second one here. And this is interesting, too, just because we've been talking about this in the news a lot, and I know you and I have had some conversations about this, but the Pelosi's sell 30,000 shares, not $30,000, but 30,000 shares.
$3 million.
Yeah. What's that?
It was $3 million worth of shares.
Okay. So, of Google stock, weeks before the Justice Department announces an antitrust lawsuit. And Here they, yet again, the best way to invest is just follow them. Whatever they do is what everybody in America should do. That we'll all be rich like them because they're better at the stock market game than people like Warren Buffett. I mean, it's crazy how they get away with this, which then goes to I love this. Josh Hawley from Missouri here has a bill that he's introducing called the Pelosi Act to stop the nonsense of the insider trading. I thought it was great, clever name, but we all know it's going on. And
we all know it's insider trading. I mean, you can't go from. I guess you can, but she went from this to having $300 million, all from her husband selling and buying stocks based on what she knows. And they know that we know that it's insider trading, but they don't care.
No.
They don't care.
Because, well, there's no
We're
consequences.
peasants. They laugh at us. They laugh at us. When Pelosi gets asked about this on stage, remember when she got asked about this?
Yeah, she laughed.
Oh, it's not really appropriate. And then just left. I guarantee you she was laughing. She was laughing.
Yeah.
She was laughing at us.
Yeah, 100%.
They know, and there's nothing they can do about it.
That is true. Well, you know, again, character matters, right? And this is the character that she shows. So hopefully, the bill that Holly's introducing will get passed. All right. So let's get into the next one, which is we have more documents that popped up, and so now even more documents from Biden pops up at a different residence, and then on top of that, now you got Jimmy Carter coming out and saying I had some. VP Pence came out and said he had some. I mean, I guess if you're in a major office, you just take classified documents everywhere you go. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not up to snuff on the processes, but yeah, if you have documents that have secret on it, you would know, right?
Or classified, right? They say classified on them.
You know,
So,
and you have to take them, and you have to physically bring them somewhere, so you know. It's not like, oh, I didn't know I had them there, and they know it's illegal,
yeah.
right?
No,
They knew what they were doing was illegal. I'm not
absolutely.
supposed to have these. I'll put them there. They'll be fine.
Yep. I agree. It definitely. I just never thought that there would ever be a time where we would be looking at so many documents being found everywhere, and it all starts with them going after Trump. I mean, you know, here Mar-a-Lago gets raided, and over time,
Yeah.
it comes out that this is pretty much par for the course. It's not an unusual.
Well, at least he was the president, right? I mean, this is a senator who had classified documents and a vice president who had classified
Yeah,
documents. So,
absolutely. It's
and the sad, not this. I mean, maybe it is sad, but we'll never know what those documents are. So, like, if there was like Eastern European documents on energy supply and not intimate knowledge of nation state, like all that information about how the energy sector works over there in Russia and Ukraine, and it was in that box in Biden's house that his son had access to. Like, we wouldn't know that.
right.
That would be the one piece of information that I would want to know. What was in those documents? Did it have to do with Ukrainian energy? Did it have to do with Russian energy? Like, those are the documents that he could sell for millions of dollars.
It is that to me. That is mind blowing to me. I'm just saying. I've never seen a story that keeps popping up like this.
It doesn't shock me. It actually shocks me that. Well, it doesn't shock me that all this goes on. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't shock me. All those people I put all those people in the same boat.
So for our last one, Scott, we have an interesting cultural phenomenon, Eminem. So Eminem puts up a tweet. You know, again, you know, character matters, and we're staying along this. So what does Eminem put out? They put out a tweet that says,
basically, they're not. Last year's was crazy, right?
Yeah.
It was a crazy year. They didn't mean to break the internet with their tweet about putting shoes on, taking high heels off of an M&M, right? And they're all about bringing people together. And so they're getting rid of the M&M mascots, and they're going to have one mascot, right?
Yep, that's
Maya Rudolph.
Yep.
Who is that? What is that?
I don't know. I think that's a comedian, right? I think that's a comedian. I think they're getting rid of all the M&Ms. I think the mascot's going to be a person now. So, yeah, kind of interesting. But what I really thought was funny was A&W's response. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it.
I thought that was great. So they said the same thing. Let's have a talk. Since 1963, Rudy, the great root bear, has been our beloved spokesperson bear. We knew people would notice because he's literally 6 foot tall, wearing an orange sweater, but now we get it. Even a mascot's lack of pants can be polarizing. Therefore, we have decided that Rudy will wear jeans going forward. We know not to worry, though. He will remain our official spokesplayer. After all, he is unbearably cute and impossibly to replace. We are confident Rudy will continue to champion good food and good times for many years to come, now in denim. I thought that was creative. I just thought...
And then they said, is now a good time to mention this is a joke.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
Yeah. I mean, how funny is it to think how much Eminem thinks how important they are?
Yeah, well,
they're little M&Ms. Like who cares about that?
Were you thinking about diversity and all the stuff when you looked at them and equality?
Not once. Didn't cross my mind.
Only equality I thought of, because I'm OCD this way, is if I have like 2 blues, I gotta have 2 reds and then 2 yellows and then 2 browns. So
okay. Interesting. That's how your M&Ms?
If you look at me when I have them at the office, I'll pull out like
do you get when you get a bag? Do you get like 6 separate bowls and then you separate them?
No, I don't. I'm not that OCD. I just pour them out and I just kind of go, okay, I got 2 reds.
You're medium OCD.
Yeah.
You're not full fledged.
No.
Okay, that's good.
No, little bit.
Okay, we got to watch that because it could turn into full fledged if you don't keep an eye on it.
Could be.
Okay, I'll keep an eye.
All right, so let's wrap this up with our verse today, because I think this is what a lot of these cultural stories come down to. Scott, why don't you read it for us, buddy?
Proverbs 27:19. As water reflects a face, so a man's heart reflects the man.
That's right.
That's good.
Yeah. So character matters.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it, I mean, it gives a little wording to the thought of like when you meet someone, you kind of, there's some people you meet, you just know you know them.
Yeah.
And that's either because they have a really good heart or a really dark heart. So you can pick that up on people pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Well, when I think of like the cultural phenomenon we go on, I often wonder how many of these people actually look in the mirror at themselves. Do they really see, as believers, we know that we look at ourselves in the mirror and realize that we're depraved human beings in need of a holy God, right?
Yeah.
And so I often wonder, do these guys do the same thing? Obviously, probably not.
I would say that people do, I think they do look in the mirror. I think the world as a whole looks in the mirror and looks at the face. I think as Christians, we're supposed to look at God's Word as our mirror.
Yeah.
God's Word is our mirror. Mirrors are not Christians' mirrors. God's Word is our mirror. And so when we look at the mirror of God's Word, that's when we really see who we are.
Yeah.
Compared to Him.
Yeah, we talked about it in an earlier episode. Are you spending more time in God's Word for truth? Or are you watching MSNBC for truth?
Or are you just looking at yourself in the mirror?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Proverbs 27:19, a great verse. As for that, we want to thank you guys for, again, hanging with us for another Triple Play. We hope that you enjoy and continue to subscribe, like. We'll continue doing this, so thank you so much.
What's our goal for subscribers? Do we have a first goal?
I would like to see
1,000?
I think that'd be great.
All right.
1,000.
How about, what if we do this? If we keep an eye on our subscribers, we'll do something special for our 1,000 subscriber.
I think so. I think not only that, but I would say is if you stand out and we're noticing you're sharing it a lot, Scott, maybe we could throw a signed ball by you and your dad their way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we could maybe do something like that, where maybe we could get some signed baseballs if you're out there sharing and we happen to notice that you're passing along on social media, because we're paying attention to that.
Yeah.
We'll maybe one day you'll look in your mail, or we'll just walk up and hand you a ball. So
yeah, I think that'd be cool. That our goals, if our goal's 1,000 to start, I think we could have something special for that 1,000 subscriber.
Okay, sounds good. You heard it from Scotty. We'll do it. Thank you again for joining us, and keep doing it. So
thank you. You're safe.